Hello everyone and welcome back to the Quality Analyst. Let me begin today's session with a very realistic situation. Imagine a scenario. You have tested the application thoroughly. You executed hundreds of test cases. Everything passed successfully. But during the UAT testing, the client asks just one question. Can you show me which test cases cover each requirement? And suddenly there is a silence. If this situation feels familiar, then today's topic is extremely important for you because the solution for this problem is called as Requirement Traceability Matrix or RTM. In today's video, we will deeply understand RTM, why it is critical in projects, and how testers actually create and use it. So in this lecture, we will cover what is Requirement Traceability Matrix, why RTM is needed in testing, types of traceability, RTM structure and columns, real-time example, and the benefits of RTM for testers. Please listen carefully. RTM is not just a document, it is a tester's safety net. So let us first understand what RTM actually is. So the Requirement Traceability Matrix is a document that maps requirements with test artifacts. In simple words, RTM answers the question, is every requirement tested? RTM helps us track requirement test scenarios, requirements test cases, requirements test execution, requirements defect. So remember this definition clearly. RTM ensures that no requirement is missed during the testing. So now the next logical question is, why do we need RTM at all? So RTM is required because projects have hundreds of requirements. Requirements changes frequently. Clients demand traceability. Missing a requirement is nothing but a business loss. So RTM gives confidence to testers, test leads, managers, and the clients. So it proves testing is complete and controlled. So now, when is the RTM created? So RTM is created after requirement analysis along with the test scenario creation before or during the test case design. So RTM is a living document. It keeps updating as the new requirements are added, requirements are modified, or the test cases changes. So good testers maintain RTM throughout the project lifecycle. Now who prepares RTM? So basically the RTM is usually prepared by test engineers, test leads, or the QA analyst. So in small projects, individual testers maintain the RTM, but in the larger projects, test leads own the RTM, but testers can update the mappings. So knowing RTM is a must-have skill for manual testers. So now there are mainly three types of traceability. First is forward traceability, then backward traceability, and the third is bi-directional traceability. Now let us understand each one slowly. So forward traceability is the first type, which means tracing requirements test cases. So it answers the question, has each requirement been tested? So for example, every requirement ID is mapped to the test case ID. This ensures no requirement is left untested. So forward traceability is the most common form used by testers. Then the second type is backward traceability. So the tracing test cases to requirements. So it answers the question, why does this test case exist? So it's mapping the test cases to the requirement. So this ensures no unnecessary test cases and no extra testing effort. So the backward traceability avoids waste of time and resources. And the third type is bi-directional traceability. The bi-directional traceability is the combination of forward traceability and backward traceability. It ensures every requirement has test cases. Every test case is mapped to the requirement. And this is the ideal and recommended approach. Now let us understand the RTM format. So this format varies from company to company, but a typical RTM contains columns like requirement ID, requirement description, test scenario ID, test case ID, test execution status, defect ID. So in some formats you may not see test execution status, but you can see defect ID. So something changes based on the company to company formatting. Okay, so RTM is usually maintained in Excel or Google Sheets or test management tools. So mostly like ALM, we can use ALM for traceability matrix maintenance. Okay, so that is the test management tool we have. Now let us take a simple example. So the requirement is user should be able to log in using valid credentials. So if you see, there is a requirement having the requirement ID RQ1. This is RQ1. Okay, and then there are test scenarios. Okay, so from this requirement there are multiple test scenarios gets derived from the by the testers. Okay, and for every scenario we have multiple test cases. So we have, you see, this is test scenario 1, test scenario 1, test scenario 1, and every test, like for this test scenario we have 3 test cases, test case 1, 2 and 3. So this is the test case ID. Okay, so first is, let's consider valid username or password, that is valid login. Second one is invalid password. Okay, and then the third one is empty fields. So these are some test cases. So now from RTM anyone can see this requirement is fully tested. So if you see this requirement, so based on this, if these 3 test cases are executed and successfully passed, then anyone can say this requirement, that is RQ1, is fully tested. Okay, so imagine an e-commerce application. The requirements are like user registration, product search, add to cart, checkout. So each requirement is mapped to the multiple test scenarios. So we can derive, we as a tester can derive multiple test scenarios from a requirement, and from a test scenario we can derive multiple test cases and the multiple executions. So we will execute that particular test case multiple times for the releases. So during UAT, client asks show testing coverage for checkout. RTM answers this in seconds. So this is a real world value of requirement traceability matrix. So importance for RTM for testers. So RTM basically helps testers to track testing coverage, to avoid missing any requirements, to handle requirement changes, to help facing audits confidently, to answer client questions clearly. So RTM is a proof of testing quality. So now there are some common mistakes testers make, such as creating RTM at the end. So you have started your test execution, you have designed test cases, you have started execution, and at the end you are creating RTM. So that doesn't make sense. Okay, so you should be creating the RTM at the start. Otherwise there may be chances of missing some requirement. So not updating the RTM, incorrect mappings, treating RTM as optional. So these are some common mistakes testers make. So RTM is not documentation burden, it is production, it is nothing but a tester's protection. Okay, so in interviews if asked what is RTM, so do not give any textbook answers. Simply say RTM is used to ensure every requirement is covered by the test cases and nothing is missed during the testing. This shows practical understanding. Now let us summarize today's session. RTM ensures the requirement coverage. RTM connects requirements and testing. RTM builds trust with the stakeholders. RTM is critical in the real projects. A tester who knows RTM is a professional tester. And with that, we come to the end of today's session. If this video helped you understand requirement traceability matrix, make sure to like, subscribe and share this video. On the quality analyst, we don't just teach theory, we teach real world testing skills. In the next video, we will create an RTM step by step practically. Until then, think quality, test smart, happy testing.